My family blames me for what happened to my bodybuilding grandmother. If I remember correctly, it all started with a gallon of milk. Oh my stars, this is heavy. Be a good lad and help your nana with the milk. I was in the kitchen of my grandmother's ground floor apartment, helping her unload her weekly shopping. She waddled over to another bag in search of something lighter. Nana always reminded me of a snowman, what with her spherical cap of white curls, twig-like arms, and a shuffling, bottom-heavy gait. In a single thoughtless moment, I lifted the milk container one-handed and placed it in the refrigerator. Nana's eyes lit up with wonder. "Ah, thank you, dear, you're so strong. You've always been such a strong boy." "Not really, Nana," I said, embarrassed. "It's only a milk jug. That hardly makes me Arnold Schwarzenegger. Anybody could do it." I wasn't expecting to see the twinkle leave her eye. I didn't mean to make her wrinkled face sink with sadness. I was only trying to make her feel better. Lying in bed that night, I was too depressed over Nana to sleep. What I said might have been careless, but was I wrong? Practically anybody should be able to lift a milk jug. Nana included. After all, the woman hadn't yet reached 80, and she was still living on her own, hardly helpless. I did some research on my phone and found that a gallon of milk weighs less than 8 pounds. 8 pounds. 8 pounds. I came up with a plan. Then I went looking for my credit card. "I love you, dear, but this all seems a bit silly to me." We were standing in the center of Nana's living room, the glass-topped coffee table with its cargo of candy dishes and old National Geographics shoved aside to make room for us. I was wearing my gym clothes. Nana was decked out in a colorful, baggy tracksuit that hadn't seen much wear since the 1980s. "Come on, Nana, it'll be fun. Now pick up those dumbbells, it's time to pump you up." Without laughing at my hilarious impression, she trepidatiously hefted the pair of pink 2.5 pounds weights I had ordered for her online. I shot her a confident smile and hit play on my workout mix. The opening beats of True Faith filled the vanilla-scented apartment. "Okay," I said, picking up my own 20-pounders, "let me show you how to do a hammer curl." By the year's first snowfall, Nana had graduated to a set of 8 pounds dumbbells that were lime green and had to be specially ordered. I almost laughed for joy, standing in the cozy apartment that morning, watching my once frail grandmother executing standing shoulder presses as Alanis Morissette screamed encouragement from the Bluetooth. After our second session with the green weights, I decided to spring it on her. "Nana, I have a surprise for you. Wait here." I ran out to my car and returned with 2-gallon jugs of 1% milk. "Can you help me with these?" I smiled. The video we made that day didn't go viral, but it was certainly shared by all of our friends and family who still use social media. I'm proud to say it even reached the feeds of some friends of friends of friends and forgotten former co-workers. The video was great. Track-suited Nana, her arms no longer so stick, like curling a milk jug in each hand as KC and the Sunshine Band insisted she shake, 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 shake. Unfortunately, the publicizing of my and Nana's triumph wasn't all happy comments and crying while laughing emojis. Uncle Erline called to yell at me for trying to give his mother a heart attack. "You think this is funny? A woman her age bodybuilding, you should be ashamed. She should have a stroke while you make another funny video? I'm sure that would get you all kinds of karma memes and super likes from your internet friends. Is that what you want?" My mother was almost worse, with her passive-aggressive emailing medical articles about the dangers of intense exercise for the elderly and cherry-picked news pieces on people who had died at the gym. I had initially thought we'd be done once Nana mastered milk weights, but the old girl was more game than ever, insisting that we continue with training. So I ignored my family and kept the sessions going, not sharing their concerns with Nana. At least at first. "Since when do you eat protein bars?" I asked, unloading my grandmother's weekly shopping. "Can I borrow your 20s, dear?" she asked, ignoring my question. "These 12-pounders feel like air." Maybe? I don't know, that's kind of a big jump. I can get you some 15s for next time," I offered. "Or 17.5-pounders, I quickly added, shriveling under Nana's snowman glare. The next time I came over to visit, I found Nana already in her tracksuit, sweating and hefting my 20 pounds weights while antique dance music emanated from her stereo. "Nana, what are you using my 20s? Is that chubby checker?" "Oh, hello, dear," she said, grunting between rows. "You were a bit late, so I got started. Without you, I can't kill my gains." Nana, I'm really proud of you and all, but, spit it out. Some people are starting to worry. Mom and airline, you know, I said, turning the music down as Nana continued her reps. They think that what we're doing isn't exactly safe. What with your age and intense exercise, and I trailed off, feeling absurdly intimidated. Nana gave one last grunt and dropped the weights. The whole floor shook. Well, isn't that silly, she said, giving me her full attention at last. Look at me, I'm fit as a fiddle. Now come on and let's try out the Romanian deadlift. Hey, what are those? I asked, pointing to an unfamiliar pharmacy bottle on the coffee table. Oh, it's nothing, Nana said sharply. They're misses. Hanicks across the street. For anemia, she waved a hand dismissively. They threw out a bunch of her things when she passed. I examined the bottle Anadrol 50 mg. My blood turned to ice. Nana, this has gotten out of hand, I said, trying to keep my voice firm. What you're doing isn't healthy anymore. Everyone agrees we need to slow down. Absolutely not, young man, she exclaimed, her face hot and red beneath snowy curls. Those fools have always been worrywarts. But you're just angry that poor frail Nana doesn't need you to carry her goddamn groceries anymore. Oh my God, Nana, it's not that. You're going to hurt yourself, I said, shaking the pills you need. I'll tell you what I don't need. I don't need you slowing me down anymore. I was starting to get truly scared. Who was this woman? Nana, I stuttered. I can't be a part of this anymore. No more training sessions. Boo-hoo, she spat, with a bitter sarcasm I had never heard before. I certainly didn't need your expert training this morning. Fine, you're a grown-up, I said, fighting a hot rush of tears. I wash my hands of this. Her nostrils flared. Nana's glare was enough to make me cower. I let the bottle of steroids drop to the floor and nearly ran back through the snow to my chilly car. Even after everything, my family still blames me and the training sessions for Nana's death. I don't know if they're wrong. She didn't have a heart attack or stroke while pumping iron. Nothing like that. In fact, all we really know for sure is what was included in the police report: a mugging gone horribly wrong, a small group of gang-affiliated youth. Apparently, Nana tried to fight them. For 13 years, I've allowed restless spirits to use me as a vessel to bring their killers to justice. I never should have listened to George. I was in a head-on collision 13 years ago. When I woke up, I had what I call a traveler. I've become a vessel for restless spirits, people that had their lives cut short by someone else. I help them find closure. I follow their lead, a soft, still voice that's felt more than heard. I've taken on a kind of nomadic lifestyle. I feel that the work I do, the work that we do, is more important than anything else. I've driven across this country so many times just waiting for one of my travelers to hail me. An Uber for the dead. Once they've found me, we go to work. No journey is the same. There have been a few times where I almost lost my life, but it's worth it. Last week I was driving through the desert, and a spirit by the name of George settled into me. He was a strong spirit, the strongest I had ever felt. He directed me to drive to Virginia. From what I could tell, he was involved in a crash, and the person who found him and nursed him back to health was also responsible for his horrific death 2 months later. George was kept bedridden and tortured for 2 months by a monster with the name of Lawrence Covey. I drove into Richmond, and I found Covey's house, but it was not yet the time to confront him. I found a hotel close to his house. George was an odd spirit. Cagey. His mutterings were vague one minute and overpowering the next. Travelers give me images or names of the killer, direct me to their remains so I can contact the authorities. George did not. George had no interest in taking me to where his body was buried. Instead, I could feel him looking into my mind, scouring it for information. I should have realized that something was wrong. He directed me to drive down the business district. He was looking for something that he saw in my mind. We passed by a Best Buy and he directed me to go inside. I bought several items under his suggestion, and when I got back to the hotel, he guided me along. I grabbed the toolkit from my trunk and took everything into my room. I let him move my hands. I butchered 2 laptops and a couple of phones, added some wires, and cobbled together some sort of electronic monstrosity. I had no idea what it was, but I could feel that George was pleased. Once I plugged in the makeshift thing, he let me know that it was time to confront his killer. I should have known something was wrong. It was a short walk to Mr. Covey's home, an old home surrounded by the most glorious roses I had ever seen. When the frail old man opened the door, I followed George's lead and let him suggest the words. Lawrence Covey. Can I help you? George sent me. Who? The man you nursed back to health after the crash. The man you tortured for 2 months. The man you killed 58 years ago. You're about to go to jail, old man. Realization crossed his face. Fear. He slammed the door. I asked George what he wanted to do next, but there was no response. I couldn't feel him anymore. It felt like he left. It had never happened this way before. I honestly felt used. I was tired and confused. I decided to go back to the hotel and get some sleep. The thing that we had built made comforting noises, little clicks and pops over a constant hum. It lulled me to sleep. I had terrible dreams. Dreams of death. Dreams of total destruction. Later that night, several men broke in while I was asleep and held me at gunpoint. Men from the FBI. Covey came in behind them. He looked at me and then over to the machine. His eyes went wide and he hurried over to it. He asked one of the agents for their gun and he emptied the gun into the thing. The hum was gone. The machine was destroyed. He looked back at me and started to laugh. So are you some kind of half-assed psychic? I help spirits find peace. I help them bring their killers to justice. He laughed again. I was frightened and confused. I had no idea what was going on. You say the spirit George guided you, eh? That's right. He asked you to build this thing here. Yes. Apparently its psychic abilities extend into death. You're a dumb son of a bitch, whoever you are. This spirit that has been communicating with you, George, is not of this planet. It was a scout. I terminated its life all those years ago because it was a threat to our very existence. Congratulations, you're going to be responsible for the destruction of our planet. The spirit of that awful thing has crossed the barrier of death and used you to build what I have to presume is a homing beacon or a distress call. If his people picked up that signal, the human race is over. I can still feel George inside of me somewhere. He's laughing. He's waiting patiently. To anyone who has read https://www.reddit.com/r/tinyhorribles/this, I'm truly sorry for what I've done. My aunt sent me a letter in the mail. I think there's something wrong with my town. Hello Reddit, my name's Adam. I'm 18 and a senior in high school. Recently I've been asking my Aunt Brandy about what colleges I should attend. She's a family law attorney and for reasons I won't get into here, I would like to do the same thing Brandy and I usually text or call. So I was a bit confused when a letter from her appeared in an envelope addressed from Vanderbilt. I am posting this here because I don't know where else to go. I'm not sure what this means for my family or friends, but as soon as I get my diploma, I'm leaving this town. The letter begins here. I didn't deserve what happened to me. I know that's a bit egotistical, but really I wouldn't wish it on anybody. Aside from the injury, I was seeing things. For weeks I felt reality escape my mind's desperate grasp. The lines between what was real and what was an image conjured by my false perception of reality have blurred over the years. You know that I could hardly wait to get out of this small town. Don't get me wrong, Hallowville is a cute little dot on the map I had assumed was worth visiting, but at this point I had been living there for 17 years. I was beyond ready to go. I didn't have dreams, I had plans. I was going to graduate as the valedictorian out of 72 students, then I'd go to Harvard and study law. Once I had enough money, I planned on moving my family out to Massachusetts with me. This all happened in 1998, so you'd think I wouldn't remember any minute details, but I can still feel the saw's jagged edges going through my skin and the vibrations proliferating in my entire body as the metal hit my bones. It was the summer after my senior year. I had already gotten accepted into Harvard, and I was just trying to save up as much money as I could. Even then, renting an apartment out of state was a huge hassle. Aside from babysitting, walking dogs, and mowing lawns, I had a steady job as a host in the only restaurant in town, Timberwolf Lodge. "Heather, can you seat this next family?" I asked the curly-haired blonde girl. She raised an eyebrow, chewing her gum behind the counter. "Why can't you?" There was spite in her voice. I would have been mad if she hadn't already been covering the other host, Nicole's shift. None of us wanted to be there, but working was the only way to get through life. At this point, I had already begun to remove my apron, relying on the off chance that Heather wasn't already fed up with the nagging customers of the evening. "I am off in 2 minutes. My birthday party is in an hour." "It's your birthday." Heather stood up. "Brandy, why are you working?" "Nicole's sick and I didn't want you working the rush alone," I told her. Heather let out a scoff. "At an Olive Garden, maybe. But we get like 5 families during our rush." I grabbed the notepad and marked the time. "Thank you so much, Heather. I owe you." "I know. Happy birthday." Heather waved me out. As I left the building, cold raindrops fell upon my skin. A chill ran down my spine, but I smiled regardless. Besides the fact that it was my birthday, gloomy weather was my favorite. Living in Central Texas, I was no stranger to humidity. But this storm was fresh, crisp. There was no heat lingering in the air, as though Mother Nature herself played a part in planning my birthday party. In the parking lot, I spotted a brand new black Dodge Viper. With a smile, I strolled over and spotted a young man sleeping, his messy black hair pressed against the window. I brought up my fist and knocked on the glass. "Are you loitering, sir?" The man stirred awake, his eyes meeting mine. He rolled down the window, a relieved smile on his lips. "There she is." I heard the melodic sound of love ring in my ears. My gorgeous birthday girl. I leaned in through the driver's side window, stealing a quick kiss from my boyfriend of nearly 2 years. "What time did you get here?" He shrugged as I made my way around to the passenger's seat. "Like an hour ago." I buckled myself in, letting out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "We should be home with enough time to get dressed and set the table if Angie hasn't yet. Is the ice in the trunk or did you drop it off at my house?" Matty spared me a sheepish smile. "I may or may not have forgotten." "Matty," I scolded, looking over my shoulder to check if he was joking or not. "You had an hour of nap time to get it." "I'm sorry, I had to pick your something up and it slipped my mind." He put his hand on mine. "Really, I'm sorry, Brandy." It's okay, really." I let out a sigh, taking out my pager. "I'll let my sister know." I already paged her. He shook his head. "We knew you'd need a couple hours of leeway, so we pushed the party back." I felt a mix of relief and frustration wash over me. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Matty smiled, shrugging. "You'll find out in a couple minutes." I furrowed my eyebrows. Could he be any more ominous? I stayed quiet, both nervous and excited for what he had planned. Matty had never been the most adventurous kind, but perhaps it was because his mind was constantly off in other worlds. Matty was an aspiring author, and he too would be going to New York for school. Granted, we would be a few hours away from each other, but it was better than being halfway across the country. My eyes fixed on a small, still figure in the distance. I squinted, noticing a familiar car on the side of the road, its hazard lights periodically illuminating the rain. "Is that Mr. Reinfer?" Indeed, on the side of 77, a 70-something-year-old man stepped out of his 1956 Ford F-100. Mr. Reinfer was a tall, lanky man with wire-framed square glasses that sat on the tip of his nose. He wore a pale blue glare through them to indicate how superior he thought he was. He had a large slouch from grading papers at his old age, displaying his complete disregard for his appearance. His grey-white hair was naturally slicked back, resembling a 1950s greaser. "I could never be a teacher," Matty said, his eyes following Reinfer as we drew closer. "Poor guy doesn't get paid enough to afford a new tire." "Should we help him?" I asked. Sure, there was a creepy aspect about his demeanor, but he was a nice guy nonetheless. I pushed down my inherent fear of older men. Whenever we faced each other, I could never bring myself to let my eyes meet him, and when they did, I felt my heart drop and stomach curl. Despite his appearance, Rhinophor was a great teacher. Without him, I wouldn't have passed apiology. Matty paused for a moment, slowing the car down against his better judgment. "Damn it, hey, Mr. Rhinophor," he cheerfully chirped as he rolled down the passenger side window. "Need some help?" Matthew Rhinophor greeted and was that displayed his hidden embarrassment. He cleared his throat. "I think I'll be okay." "Are you sure?" I asked him. "Wouldn't you want to wait out the rain?" Rhinophor was a stubborn old man, but surely he wouldn't risk his safety for his pride. "I'll be okay, Brandy. The rain is on my side. You'll find out why at the center of the earth." Okay, Matty nodded. "Bye, Mr. Rhinophor." I just smiled and waved, rolling up my window. I furrowed my eyebrows and looked at Matty. Do all old people talk in riddles? Matty shrugged. The man's ancient. He probably invented riddles. I shifted back in my seat, looking out the right-hand mirror. Mr. Rhinophor was resting against his car, his face tilted up towards the clouds. Freak. "You're the one who wanted to stop," Matty reminded. I pursed my lips as the old teacher disappeared from view. "I hope he'll be okay. I wish we knew someone to call for him." "He's made it first. I'm sure he'll be fine. Now, close your eyes," he told me, slowing down. I didn't bother objecting, my trust completely laid in his hands. I let out a breath as I heard Matty's panicked rustling beside me. "You okay?" "This isn't how it was supposed to go," he groaned. I couldn't help but open my eyes. I looked out the windshield through the rain. There was a red and white checkered blanket held down by 4 stones on each corner. Pillows and blankets and roses, now all drenched in rain. I smiled and turned to Matty. It's a sweet sentiment." I put up a canopy. I swear he took my hand. I guess I underestimated the storm. "Hey, we can have a picnic in here." I kissed his cheek with a wide grin. When I sat back down, I noticed Matty shake his leg, his hands in his lap. Something was bothering him. "What's wrong?" His eyes flickered from me to the window. "I drank a lot of Mountain Dew when I was waiting for you." I let out a snort, covering my mouth. "Sorry, just go, and be careful." Matty nodded, grabbing a small bottle of hand sanitizer as he traveled into the woods. I hadn't noticed that the rain was even worse here than on the road. I hoped Matty would stay safe, and be quick. I bounced my knee as I waited for the boy to return. How romantic! I looked out into the unfamiliar woods. I knew many kids had gone to this clearing before. Our very own Lover's Lane. Even then, it was a cheesy cliché. I was sure that some movie buff saw it in theaters and chose to replicate it. After some time, I averted my gaze into the direction Matty had gone. I looked at my watch. It had been nearly 10 minutes since he had left. Scenarios played out in my head. I was unable to see the tree that Matty disappeared behind. I rolled down the window, squinting my eyes to make out silhouettes in the rain. I thought I saw a figure who looked about Matty's size. "Matty," I called out to no response. I let out a breath and opened the car door. The wind whirled around me, whipping heavy rain into my face. With a groan, I continued into the woods, looking back to the sanctuary of the car behind me. A part of me was rationalizing why Matty was taking so long, but my anxiety got the better of me. My steps were heavy, mud already forming on the earth's surface beneath me. I walked deeper into the woods and found something odd. At first I thought it was a cabin, but upon close inspection, it appeared to be a tight-knit ring of trees acting as a barrier. I circled around the trees, looking for some sort of entrance. I found a thick set of vines that, though heavy, could be pushed back to walk through. I stepped through the vine, the atmosphere instantly shifting. Though the rain was dense and the wind was coarse, it seemed as if this ring of trees was in an entirely different space altogether. I could still see the dark clouds above, but the leaves were so tightly packed together that rain only trickled in certain spots. I furrowed my eyebrows, unable to fully comprehend the setting laid before me. A well. A wishing well with a square stone base. The top of the roof was at least 6 feet high, and when I got closer I realized why it was so big. A metal trapdoor was open, revealing steps leading downward into a dark abyss. I focused my eyes, the faint glow of flickering candlelight at the bottom. I felt my heart drop at the eerie sight. "Matty," I called down. The wind and rain stilled. A sinister silence plagued the clearing. I'm not sure if I was tuning out everything else, or if every creature on Earth decided to quiet, but I didn't hear a single whisper. It was as though nature itself paused. Brandy. The word sent a chill down my spine. Something about that voice was desperate, but as I recalled it in my mind, I couldn't discern its source. The voice had to be Matty's, but it felt angry, injured. "Matty, are you okay?" I called down. He didn't respond. I took a breath, looking down the stairs. The stairway itself was dim, but there was a light at the bottom. "Matty," my voice was small, pleading. I was waiting for him to run up the stairs, laughing at his sick and twisted attempt at comedy, but he never did. I heard a loud, ear-splitting screech. I let out a groan and ran back to the car, grabbing a flashlight. As I shut the door, a wave of regret washed over me. I had left the keys in the car. I reached my hand through the rolled-down window, opening it up from the inside. The alarm suddenly blared in my ears, the hazard lights flashing, momentarily illuminating the heavy drops of the downpour. I frantically pushed the unlock button, but the alarm would not stop. With a noise full of frustration and anxiety, I ran back to the ring of trees. I pushed past the vine, sharp leaves leaving paper-like cuts on my arms as I shielded my face. I swallowed and turned the flashlight as I approached the well. I looked down, illuminating the steps below me. The stairs were made entirely of stone, its creators not bothering to smooth the jagged edges down. I carefully stepped down, my steps echoing through the hallowed tunnels. As I neared the bottom, I realized the flickering I saw was from the many sconces lining the stone walls. I looked around, pointing my flashlight through the dimly lit hallway. I noticed a nearby archway, leading to a room lit by a white light. As I approached the room, the scent of bleach and other chemicals burnt my nose. I brought my hand to cover my nose as I entered. It was another tunnel. This one was wider and lined with metal doors on either side. I brought my flashlight up, trying to see the end of the tunnel. Before I could spot the end, I felt a pair of hands wrap around me. I struggled in the sudden grip, every defense mechanism kicking in. A cloth was brought to my mouth and I tried my best to hold my breath, but my body acted against my wishes. I took in a deep, deprived breath, the ancient stone around me disappearing completely. When I woke up, I couldn't move. There were no restraints, but some invisible force was locking me down onto the icy steel table beneath me. There was an immense pressure plaguing my entire body, particularly my chest. I could barely breathe because of a burning sensation in my throat. Steps echoed in the empty halls. My head reeled as I tried to turn my head to see where the noise was coming from. The air became thicker as my breath became rapid. I was stuck in a body with total loss of control. The steps became louder and I heard it again, the screeching. It wasn't until then did I realize that it was the thick metal door. I tried to scream but felt the burn in my throat worsen. Hot tears trickled down either side of my face like melting candle wax. I felt like I was breathing through a piece of cloth. No amount of desperate, deep breaths could calm me down. I knew I should have steadied my breath, but there was no point. I was going to die on that rusty operating table. The footsteps came to a stop right beside me, just out of my peripheral vision. The sound of a drill drowned out my thoughts as the figure dressed in white walked down to my hips. He looked me in the eyes, and though his mouth was covered with a surgical mask, the manic crinkle in his eyes gave away his true level of lunacy. When the saw first touched my skin, I thought that maybe he was just bluffing, a sadistic sort of play date. But when he broke skin within the very first slice, I knew that this was no joke. People say that your adrenaline spikes when in danger so that you cannot feel pain as intensely. But I felt it. I felt every single movement in that jagged, rusty saw. I wanted so desperately to scream, to cry, to plead, to anything, but the possibility simply wasn't there, the fire in my throat roaring over any attempt at noise. I settled for muffled groans as the saw went deeper and deeper into my thigh. My breathing didn't even hitch. I couldn't control it. The pain was gut-wrenching and I could do nothing to stop it. I couldn't stop it. As the saw touched my bone, I saw stars. I felt my body twitch and I passed out once again. When I woke up, my entire left leg was gone. The room was still, the air thick with the scent of metal and bleach. I was gaining consciousness faster this time, the aching pain from my leg shooting up my entire body. I reached out towards the scalpel on the table, the smallest sense of safety and hope rushing over me, but the cart rolled away and the body of the doctor came into view. He was carrying my leg. I saw it sit stiffly in his arms, a stolen trophy. He set it down on a metal table, grabbing a nearby rusty wheelchair. He turned back to face me, the manic glint in his eyes ever present. My hands fell to my side once more and I lay still on the table, a corpse ready for examination. As the doctor came close to my right side, he clicked the wheelchair in place. Where was he planning to take me? He pushed a piece of my hair away from my face. His cruel, ungloved hands were rough and calloused. He leaned down and brought his masked face near my neck. His body hovered over me. The doctor sniffed in a breath, an animalistic noise filling my ears. My hand shot up, digging the car keys into his neck. The doctor let out a pathetic cry as blood sprayed onto my face. I closed my mouth and yanked the keys out, stabbing him once again. His body slowly fell onto mine as I continued to stab his neck over and over again, only stopping when his body slipped to the floor. I looked down at his limp body. The image hasn't left my mind since. I sat up, my head pounding. I pushed the wheelchair forward, squeaky wheels echoing throughout the narrow stone halls. I hit the base of the stairs, projecting onto the steps in front of me. I felt my arms scrape against the UN chiseled rock, pushing the pain out from my mind. I was this close to freedom, I couldn't let a little blood stop me. I crawled up the stairs at an agonizingly slow pace. I kept thinking I heard footsteps behind me, but if I did, no one would take me. I fell out of the well, rolling on the ground. I still didn't feel safe. I dug my nails into the earth below me, my mind and body for the release of both my physical and mental anguish. I was close, so close to the vines. I saw red and blue flashing lights. My salvation was mere yards away. I reached my hand through the vine, the leaves denying my exit. I clawed at the hanging plants once more, but my shaky hand could not penetrate the barrier. Then the hand of death reached out for me, pale, bony and welcoming. I accepted, my fingers grasping his. Both hands wrapped around my wrist and pulled me out. The rain had stopped, but the grass was still damp. I rolled onto my back, taking heavy breaths of relief. I did it. I made it out. I looked up at my savior, my eyes meeting his pale blue gaze. Mr. Renifer, I cheered, though it probably came out as a rasp. My throat was still burning. I reached my hand up, realizing there was a large gash through it. Thankfully, the cut was shallow, but it was deep enough to temporarily damage my voice box. Mr. Renifer sat beside me on the ground as the police officer spoke to me, the EMTS readying the gurney. I couldn't speak, only communicating through nods and head shakes. When we got to the hospital, I was given a pad of paper to finally give my full story. The police told me it was all a hallucination. They said that yes, there was a staircase in the well, but it was abandoned long ago. Apparently I slipped and hit my head and passed out. During the fall, my thigh scraped against a rusty barrel and they had to amputate my leg due to infection. The hospital even had the paperwork to prove it. Stewing chemicals created a biohazardous gas that induced hallucinations. That alone was strange, but what they told me about Matty sealed my suspicions. Matthew Boyd's body was found floating in the river with blunt force trauma to his head. Sheriff Shaw told me, his hat in his hands. We're sorry for your loss. Blunt force trauma, I repeated, not sure if he was being serious. Who hit him? We think he went to the river to relieve himself, as you told us. Then he slipped, hit his head and fell. Are you fucking kidding me? I questioned, anger seeping through my broken body. You gave us both the same cover story. Attacked by a pack of wolves is more believable than two perfectly balanced teens slipping and hitting their heads enough to at least pass out. Shaw stood up straight, placing his hat back onto his prematurely balding head. You're still in shock. No fucking duh. I didn't speak to anyone else after that, not even my family. I don't know what he was covering up or who he was covering up for, but I got the hell out of that town the next week. And you should too, Adam. Luckily, you don't have any siblings. I suggest that you lay low until you graduate. As soon as that diploma's in your hand, you get far, far away from there.